All right, let's talk about these politics and how they're affecting economy. Um, there's a huge misrepresentation amongst the media and amongst social media and all these different people, these so-called, journalists and bloggers and everybody's got an opinion, but their opinion's all biased, which is fine, which is absolutely fine because that's what makes it an opinion. It's just their thoughts, right? It's their thoughts, it's their way of looking at things, their view, their processing. And sometimes it's skewed intentionally because ultimately they want you to believe that, their platform is the right one. They want you to believe that the guy that they like is the right guy. They want you to believe that the guy that they like did everything right. They want you to believe that the guy they don't like got everything wrong. Everybody wants to point a finger. See, that's just human nature. That's not even a political thing. That's just human nature. When it comes down to anything that man, I got a chopper going over my head right now. When it comes down to anything in life, it's human nature. You want an answer. We don't like not having an answer. When your aunt, your uncle, your grandma, somebody gets sick in your family, you want to know why. You want to know, oh, well, did somebody bring germs into the house? Or if they get a disease, you want to ask God, why my grandma? Why my aunt? Why my brother? Why me? You want an answer. You ask God, you ask, politicians, you ask doctors, you'll discover that, somebody's got heart disease or cancer or something, right? And your first thing you ask the doctor is, how'd this happen? That's human nature. We want an answer. We want an answer of why. We want to know how can we fix it. We want to know all these things. Like I said, and so we do the same thing with our economy, right? Because the economy has seen so many ups and downs, and the reality is it's never been so in your face as it is today. And I blame that on social media. Plain and simple, social media is putting it right in our face. Everybody's got a smartphone. I'm using a smartphone right now just to post this video for y'all. Like, the reality is everybody's posting their information. Everybody's posting their opinions, their ideas, their comments, their commentary. They're trying to analyze things that ultimately they don't even know how to analyze. Yes, our economy has seen some hard times. And yes, our economy is struggling right now with certain things. But yes, as I've posted, if you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you follow me, you've seen me talk about it before. You've seen me talking about it right here on some of my videos before, that we are in a opportune moment to develop a business, to grow our business, to invest in real estate, the stock market, crypto, just different things and I'm not telling you any one of these things. If you don't like one of these things, then that's why I'm telling you there's different options. Because right now, we're not living in a time where there's only one choice. Now, there was a time. You can look back at different eras in our history, in the economy of our country, and different moments where it's like, man, you know what? That's the industry you need to be in right now. That's the industry. There was different times like that. We're not in that time right now. There's so many opportunities, and there's so many things that are growing and evolving, and there's so many endless possibilities. So right now we're on the cusp of something beautiful. And now the reality is that we can look back, let's look back 2.5 years. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We can sit here and say, well, that pandemic ruined our economy. I won't say you're wrong, but I won't say you're right either. It hurt our economy. Did it ruin it? Nah. Our economy is pretty strong. Our nation is pretty strong. The biggest thing that's crippling our society is our everyday citizens. Our people who are people who are feeding all of this nonsense out here, and all the other people who are buying into the garbage. That's what's ruining our economy. That is what's ruining our nation. Okay, our economy is in great shape. Now, it's still got struggling. It's still hitting walls. It's still got some things it's got to get past. People talk about what prompted me to talk about this is there's been some debates. Well, there's been lots of debates, but there's been some debates about the banks. And about that we're in the worst banking situation we've been in. There's all these banks closing down, and you see these headlines everywhere, and everybody buys into it. And there's so many people who have I had somebody message me on Twitter, and they're just like, well, yeah, because they shut the country down and they shut the economy down. And then after that, yeah, what else could they have expected? You realize we have had three banks in 2023 that have closed. Now that sounds like a lot, right? It does. It actually does. Especially since two of them were pretty big banks. The third one was pretty small. But there's been three banks that closed in 2023. Now, it is now July. Halfway through July. So we're halfway through the year. We're midway through the year. Three banks have closed down. Oh my gosh, that sounds rough. Especially since they were all within a couple months span. It was in the spring that they all closed down. So it was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Do you realize in the last 5 years, we have had the least amount of bank closures that we've seen in a 5-year gap in 20 years? Let me break out the data for you because I got it right here. I went ahead and saved it because I knew I wasn't going to remember all these numbers. But check this out. I've talked about this before. If you followed me for long enough, I've talked about this before. But I'm breaking it down. Again, 2001, we had 4 banks closed down. 2002, we had 11. 03, 3. 04, 4. 05 and 06, we had none. That was cool. We had no closers. In 07, we had 3. In 08, we had 25. In 09, 140. Ooh, 140. 2010, 157. 11, 92. 2012, 51. 2013, 24. 2014, 18. This is just normal. Banks close. This is an ebb and flow of our economy. Some banks get way in over their head. They don't know what they're doing. They issue credit cards. They issue loans for banks. Loans for banks, apologies. They issue loans for real estate. They issue personal loans. They issue mortgages. They've got all these different things. Okay, business loans. There's all these different things. And sometimes they get in over their head. It happens. 2015, 8 of them closed. 2016, 5. 2017, 8. 2018, 0. 2019, 4. 2020, 4. Now that 2020 was the first year of COVID, right? It happened. It was first 2019. It was COVID-19. It was December of 19 when it was a big issue, and the pandemic officially started in March of 2020. 2020 we had 4 close. 2021 we had none. 2022 none again. 2023 we had 3. Now this is interesting because not everybody, but several people want to blame the fact that these banks closed because of the pandemic. But during the pandemic, 2 years back to back, 0 banks closed during that pandemic. That's interesting because 0 banks closed while we were in pandemic, but the pandemic was the cause of these banks closing. Now the thing is people did nothing. The thing that the pandemic did that a lot of people don't realize, the pandemic caused a lot of people to stay home. Everybody sat at home doing nothing but sitting on their phone, sitting on their computer, sitting on their iPad, searching, reading, blogging, all their nonsense, right? TikToking. So they did this. And while they did this, there was 2 years where nobody said anything about a bank closing. So they were like, banks aren't closing. No, banks are closed. Banks aren't closed. Then all of a sudden, 3 closed. 3 closed, and they're like, hey, wait, what happened? And because everybody was busy on their social media, because that's what people do, all of a sudden it made big news that these 3 closed. Now, even though those 3 closed, let's take one of those 3 because it was an anomaly. The biggest one, Silicon Valley. Now, Silicon Valley has been in trouble for more than 5 years. They've been in trouble for a good long time, right? Not everybody knows that, but a lot of people know that. So for those of you who don't know it, look it up. They've been in trouble for a hot minute. They were way over leveraged. They were way in over their head. And the pandemic didn't really help them because during that time, people's rents and things like that were forgiven. So people didn't have to make payments. Now, they still owed their money, but they were not evicted for lack of payment. So banks weren't able to come in and foreclose on people and kick people out and throw people in the street and say, hey, I'm, auctioning off your house. They weren't able to do that. So places like Silicon Valley, places like a lot of banks, had a little bit of, concern at that time. And that's why, during the Trump administration, they agreed to give stipends to a lot of banks and stuff like that to help them survive. At the same way they gave individual people these COVID relief. They gave monthly payments. They give them to everybody, right? Okay. Everybody's all mad that these big corporations got it, but you know what? Everybody's all concerned that these banks are closing. But what kept some of those banks from closing during those 2 years was the fact that they were given stipends to help them survive, to stimulate the economy, saying, hey, people can't work, but hey, let's just give them some money and help them survive, rather than spending money building a wall, rather than spending money relieving wars that are in other countries. Let's spend some of that money on our economy. Now, some people say, some people give Trump credit for that. Some people give Biden credit for that. Some people criticize Trump for that. And some people criticize Biden. I'm not going to argue with anybody about this. The reality is that ultimately it did happen during the Trump administration. And I do believe that whether you like Trump or not, he was doing the best he could. Like, I think he was. I absolutely believe he was like, let's stop spending money here, here, and here, and let's help our economy. Then, typically, that's a Democrat Party kind of situation. It's not often that it's the Republican Party wanting to bail people out. It's the Democrat Party. So, of course, everybody quickly said, as the economy struggled after the pandemic was over and after Biden was in office, everybody wants to point a finger at Biden and say, well, this is all his fault. Well, no, it's not his fault. He picked up where it was left off. And other people want to say, well, then obviously it's Trump's fault. No, again, he did the best he could. So, I'm not advocating for you to like Trump. I'm not advocating for you to like Biden. I'm saying that this economy isn't blamed on simple politics, but we as humans want to point a finger. We want an answer. Well, I'll give you the answer. Ultimately, what it is, it's an ebb and a flow. It happens. These things have happened before. They're going to happen again. This will not be the last time that we see struggles like this. And right now, we are, if you truly take stock of what's really going on, like if you really sit back, look at the economy, right now, first of all, like I said, only 3 banks have closed. 3. Only 3. One of them, like I said, let me finish because I kind of got sidetracked. Back to Silicon Valley. Not only did they get in over their head, but then they did get stipends that helped them survive. But then they saw an opportunity as crypto was on the rise during the pandemic, right? They saw an opportunity. So what they say, they said, you know what? I think if we leverage into crypto, we can dig ourselves out of this faster than some of these other banks. No, they miscalculated. They gambled. They didn't know. Now, banks, when you put your money in savings and all these different things and IRAs and all these, banks invest your money. This is not new. They invest your money. They loan your money. That money, they never have enough money. I mean, go back to It's a Wonderful Life. And y'all seen that movie? It's a Wonderful Life. At the end of the day, no bank has the liquidity to cover all the accounts. When people put their money in the banks use that money. They use that money to leverage into other places because because all of their clients are never going to walk through the door and ask for all their money at one time. Now, there was a crisis in the movie, It's a Wonderful Life, and so they all run in there asking for their money, and he does his best to try to calm the town down and try to fix things and starts pulling money out of his own pocket. It's a beautiful scene. But ultimately, the town had to pull together and accept that, you know what, I trust you, I've been banking with you for a long time, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And ultimately, that's what we have to do as Americans already. Just accept that, you know what, we're not in a banking crisis. We're really not. Yeah, there's problems in our country. There's problems in our economy. There's things. But it's nothing we can't handle. Especially if we stop blaming the right, stop blaming the left, the up, down, middle, backwards. It doesn't matter. Stop blaming everybody and just... What can you do to better help the situation? What can you do to better solidify your financial freedom? What can you do to better preserve your future? Do not go into the bank, withdraw all your cash and say, I'm not putting any of my money in the bank because, okay, that's not the idea. That's not the idea. And don't get to the point where you stop taking out, making investments, stop taking out loans. Like, our economy needs to keep moving forward. Now, yes, when it comes to personal finance, there are different methods and there are different ideas and concepts. And so that's not exactly what I'm talking about in this particular post. We can, however, talk about that later because I'd love to get into that better. And there's other posts that I've had. There was one about the idea of using credit cards opposed to living off your debit card. Go back and watch that video. It's a great one. That talks more about the personal finance and how you can do better to keep yourself safe and build for your future. Now, the idea is that we got to keep living our life. We got to keep moving forward. And we got to stop pointing a finger so much, as instead of constantly wanting to find a bad guy to point our finger at, ask ourselves the question, what can I do to make the situation better? This is what I'm doing. This is one of the many things I'm doing. First of all, I'm continuing to live my life. I'm continuing to invest. I'm continuing to grow my portfolio and build for my family. I'm trying to grow my business with my partners and stuff, and ultimately help my partners to teach other people to grow their business, as well as growing to the point that we can employ more people and things like that. But I'm also trying to take opportunities like this to spread good information to help more people know what's really going on and know what they can do to better solidify their station in life and stop wasting so much time and energy pointing a finger. Yeah, politics absolutely does affect the economy from time to time. It does affect it, and it can affect it. It affects it on a daily basis, and sometimes it's really small and it's not nothing big. Sometimes it's really big and it's like, okay, man, this is really big. This really largely decreased our economy. This made our economy take a hit. This boosted our economy. Yeah, there's all these different things you can do. Right now, people want to argue about why we have less unemployment. It's a whole nother thing, but it's more about our economy. Right now, we have less unemployment than we've seen in over 20 years. Once again, now some people want to give Biden the credit and high five him and say, look what he did. Maybe. I don't think it's all him, though. I don't. But I also don't think that he didn't have a part in it. Okay, obviously, the people in Congress, the people in the White House, all these different people had some effect on things. Absolutely. But is it one person that put this thing in motion? No. We're at a 3% unemployment rate. In 2019, right before the pandemic, was the lowest it had been since the 90s, which was 4% unemployment. 4%. Now, it was during the Trump administration, he got it down to 4%. Now, here after the pandemic, we got it down to 3%. Some people are like, they want to give Biden credit saying, well, he replaced he gave all these millions and millions and millions of jobs. And it's like, well, some of those jobs were people going back to work who lost their job during the pandemic. So some people who dislike Biden want to quickly react and respond with, oh, he didn't do anything. But he obviously did something because he lowered it by 1%. And 1% is a hell of a lot when you're talking about it was down to 4% of this nation, which was the lowest since the 90s. 4%, the lowest. And now it's down to 3%. Our economy is doing well. Now, some of that I absolutely attribute to more people finally getting jobs. Some of that I attribute to more people launching businesses. There's less people on unemployment because there's more people actually building something for themselves. There are still 3% is huge. When you're talking about 3% of billions of people, 3%, millions and millions and millions of people, 3%. That's a lot of people not working. That's a lot of people still struggling. So I don't want to sneeze at that, and I don't want to disregard that and say, oh, well, they're not suffering. No, they still are. There are people suffering. But there's opportunities for them. There's opportunities for them to grow. There's opportunities for them to build. There's opportunities for them to get a job. There are lots of people who don't have a job, who at the end of the day don't have a job because they're saying, you know what? I'm drawing a line. I used to be a supervisor of XYZ, and I'm not cleaning that up. Well, if you're going to draw a line there, then you're choosing to be unemployed. That's on you. But when there's people that are begging for employees, I had a guy who, when I was a manager at Taco Bell. I was 18 years old and I was a manager at Taco Bell. And there was a guy, he had a little attitude from most of the time, but it didn't matter. He came and went to work. But he was a retired Army guy. He was in the Army, he retired. He said he just wanted some extra cash, but he came and got a job at Taco Bell. Obviously, he was way overqualified, but he said he didn't want a job that was stressful. He wanted something that was easy. So he came and worked at Taco Bell, and he worked about 25 hours a week. But ultimately, that was his mentality. I want something easy. He took out trash. He made tacos. He cooked beans. He mopped the floors. He washed dishes. I mean, there are people who will draw a line and say, I'm not washing a dish. I'm not cleaning. I'm not taking out trash. You know what I used to do? You know where I used to work? That's beneath me. Like I said, there's jobs out there. There's lots of jobs. There's lots of jobs. There's lots of companies and people begging for employment. In addition to all the people begging for employment, there is so much opportunity for you to invest what you have and build something for yourself. It doesn't have to be you go work in a 9-to-5 for someone you don't want to do. It's something you don't want to do in a place you don't want to be. Nah. We're in the most opportune moment of my generation. Now, I was born in 1980. I'm 42. I was born in 1980. There's some people who are older than me who've seen worse, who've seen better, they've seen worse, they've seen a lot. But I'll tell you right now, this is the most opportune moment. People my age, my generation, who have lived as long as I have or less, this is the most opportune moment to build something huge. People saw the crisis in the housing market back in 2008, 9, and 10. There was a lot of people who seized an opportunity and built something out of that. The opportunity wasn't nearly as big then as it is right now. We have so much that we can do. We have so much that we can gain. We have so much we can learn. And right now, just as you have a device right in your hand that enables you and cripples you and feeds you misinformation all day long on a daily basis, it also, if you weed through all that nonsense, it feeds you great, intelligent knowledge that'll put you on the right track if you're willing to weed through all the nonsense and get to some cold, hard facts and build something for yourself. Let's go out today. Let's do something better. Let's really give it all we've got to build for our future, to build for our family, to build for this nation. You don't realize, a lot of people don't realize that building something, a company, a business, you're offering something more than just to your family. You're doing something for your community and for this nation. I think, honestly, that is a big part of what's changed the economic structure and the unemployment rate. People aren't unemployed if they're building a business for themselves, People aren't unemployed if that business hires other employees. Let's do better, y'all. Let's stop wasting the time. Pointing a finger doesn't do any good. Like, honestly, even if you believe you have the right answer and you don't believe it's any nonsense at all, you believe it's all factual, it's all real, it's all based on truth, pointing a finger will never correct the struggles in our nation. Ask the question, what can you do to fix it? Let's do better, guys. It's your boy. I'm out.